Hello, geography fans, and in this video, we are going to be looking at episode 4 of the Second U.S. Civil War. So, short recap of what's happened so far. It was a civil war between the liberal states and the conservative states. The fascist states joined in as a third party. The liberal states were destroyed, and the conservatives and fascists duked it out. And then the socialist party came in. Texas and California tried declaring independence. A whole big war happened with them. They lost. Well, California lost, and the conservative states ended up getting destroyed. And then the Nazi states, which is what they became because they were Hitler's fascism, so they just decided to rebrand themselves to the Nazi states. They survived along with the socialist states and Texas. And then after that, we had people not liking the new Nazi, states, so they overthrew the government, replacing them with the nationalist states. And then we had the nationalist states, the communist states. Oh, Jesus Christ. The socialist states, we had the nationalist states, the communist states, the fascist states, the socialist states, Texas, and the anarchist states. We had all 6 of those factions in one giant war. And as we all know, only two of them came out on top, the fascists and the anarchists. Now, these fascist states, this is not Hitler's fascism. This is more Mussolini's fascism. I explained that in the last video. This is just for people that didn't see the last video. Also, in the last video, I explained that Hawaii, natural causes took them out, but also that Maine and Alaska actually joined Canada. That will become important later in the episode. But for now, it's just going to be a showdown between the fascist states and the anarchist states. Without further ado, let it begin. And at this moment in the Civil War, it looks like war in the U.S., well, what used to be the U.S., because these all broke away into different countries, seems like war is finally going to end, as the anarchist states are close to defeat. However, something always has to happen. It can never be this simple. There's got to be some big event that's going to happen. Well, it looks like Canada's not sorry anymore. Oh, they're really not sorry anymore. The war has now entered a new phase, with Canada joining the war against both sides of the U.S. Civil War. Canada's goal is just to claim as much territory as possible and move on with their lives. But not just Canada. Mexico also begins their invasion of U.S. soil. With this, we see the fascist states and the anarchist states actually sign an armistice, and for once in anyone's life in the U.S. Civil War series, the two actually work together against these two foreign powers. We see this as both the fascist states and the anarchist states retract all their troops from each other's territory in order to focus on fighting off the Canadians and the Mexicans. This has evolved from just a civil war into an actual all-out war inside the United States. Let the show begin. The anarchist states have been eliminated, and it seems that despite all odds, the United States has finally been defeated. Almost 250 years of the United States of America existing, they've now, to the hands of Mexico and Canada, have been shrunken down to just Washington, D.C. This is the United States of America's final stand. This is where they will be defeated at the hands of two foreign powers. Canada and Mexico have finally accomplished what they were set out to accomplish: the complete destruction of the United States. Or did they? Well, of course, the fascist states, they kind of readied for this. They knew that Canada was putting troops on the border of the U.S. They also knew that they were preparing their navy to attack from Washington, and they had suspicions that Mexico was going to invade from Texas. So they readied for this. They knew they wouldn't be able to stop the bulk of the invasion force, as they would probably be fighting off the anarchist states at that time, which they definitely were. However, they had something else in mind. You ever wondering why not in any of these episodes any of the states have used nukes? It's because the fascist states have been saving them. None of the states, they really didn't need to use nukes. They never found a need for it, and none of their leaders were that crazy. But these are the fascist states we're talking about. Of course they're going to use nukes if they have them. And, well, conveniently, in DC, the only stronghold of the US left, that's where they're all stored. Yes, all like 6,000 of them. Which is why the Canadian and Mexican armies are unable to push into DC. It simply has too strong of a defense. And then we have the US fascist states unleashing Operation Annihilation. That's a pretty sweet name. And it is exactly what it sounds like it is. They launch nukes all across Mexico and their occupied territories, and they do the exact same to Canada, but they punish them with more of a vengeance as, well, they're the ones currently sieging DC. About 2,000 nukes launched at Mexico, about 4,000 at Canada. With this, DC falls. But as we can see, the radiation from the nuclear bombs have almost destroyed, well, all of the US. Mexico's government doesn't exist anymore, Canada's government doesn't exist anymore, and, well, whatever government may or may not be over here is about to not exist. The radiation spreads until Tennessee and Kentucky are the last two states remaining. But both of these states, no matter how advanced they may or may not have been, they both fall to the radiation. The entirety of the United States is now covered in thick layers of radiation. This isn't just happening in the US, Canada, and Mexico. This is happening all across the Americas, in the Pacific, even in Europe and Africa. Eventually, the radiation will spread worldwide. This is what everyone calls the end. The end of civilization. The end of humanity itself. And all at the hands of those darned American fascist states. They couldn't deal with not being a country anymore, so with their destruction, they decided to take the entire world with them. Except for the Mars colonies. This is the future. It's a futuristic scenario, so the world probably has colonies on Mars, right? Well, they do. Now those Mars colonies are all alone. Anyone who is lucky enough to hide out in bunkers probably survived the nuclear blasts. They won't be alive much longer as, well, most of humanity has been taken out to the radiation. So Mars is basically the last remaining stronghold for humanity. But luckily for this futuristic scenario, Mars has been terraformed. It is actually very much so thriving, a whole lot more than Earth in this radiated state is. Mars will live on. Earth shall not. Millennia of history all gone to the hands of a few greedy dictators in Washington, D.C. This is the end of the American Second Civil War series. There may or may not be a season 2. You'll just have to wait and see. If there is a season 2, it probably won't come until like next month, though. Because still being in school and everything, we have testing and, just testing, and no one likes testing. So I'm going to have that to deal with for about 2 weeks. So that's why I've just been pumping out uploads like crazy, not like I usually do. That's just because I won't be able to upload for a couple weeks, maybe just a short every now and then. But I do plan to, after I, get done with all my storyline stuff, after I finish Reich World, and after I maybe finish Alternate Cold War, then I'm just going to be doing Nations of the World videos for like a long time. That's because Nations of the World is going to be like one of my largest series with almost 200 episodes, probably actually over 200 episodes. So yeah, I kind of want to knock as many of those episodes out as I can. I've already knocked out 34 of them, so Only like 170 something more to go. Jesus Christ. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. Well, see you in the next one.